This is an interview with Carl Grace for the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute's Oral History Project. I'm Dr. Horace Huntley. We're presently at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. Today is April 9th, 1997. Mr. Grace, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and talk with me today.
Glad to come. Glad to come.
I just want to start by asking you some general questions about your background,
Okay.
about your family. Were your mother and father from the Birmingham area?
They were from an area. I'm not exactly sure which county it was, but it was not very far from the Birmingham area.
Oh, okay.
Yes. My father and mother, they most of their life they spent in the Birmingham area.
I see.
Yeah.
And you were born in Birmingham?
Right. I was born at Lord Nolan High School.
Lord Nolan,
Fairfield.
okay.
Right.
Your mother and father's educational background?
Okay. My mother finished high school on a GED. She went back to Miles College and finished her high school education.
Okay. Did she go to industrial high?
No, she went. No, she didn't go to high school in this arts school in Birmingham area.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But
you don't remember what part of Alabama they were from?
Overton. I know Overton was one of the areas which they lived in. Booston.
Okay.
I think Booston was a mining area at the time. They lived in that area.
All right.
You know, but exactly what school, and I'm sure the school doesn't even exist now.
Yeah, I see.
But
So she finished high school, GED.
right at
And
Miles College.
what about your father?
My father, I'm not sure which school he went to, but my father, he retired. He was very, very active in NAACP.
Yeah.
At the time.
Did he finish high school as well?
I'm sure he did, but what school he finished, I don't know. But it wasn't in the Birmingham area.
Oh,
It wasn't in the Birmingham area.
And did your mother work outside of the home?
At one time, when I was very small, she did some housework for the Caucasians, for some Caucasians years ago, you know, but that was very limited because, you know, we had a pretty active family.
Yeah. How many were in your family?
There were 4 boys and 1 girl. Actually, there was 5. My oldest brother, I don't know, because my mother was 6 months pregnant with me when he was killed.
I see.
He was killed by a security guard at USDO on his way to work.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and
How did that happen?
he, from what my understanding of it, in the lot at USDO, some of the young guys, black guys, had been taking the cars and joyriding and parking. He worked at USDO. He had done a period of time in the Navy, had come out of the Navy, went in the Navy very young. He elevated his age and they accepted him in the Navy. He came out of the Navy and got a job at USDO, and through the parking lot was his way to go to work every day. And from what I understand, the guard told him to halt. He kept going and he shot him in the back, killed him. My mother pursued it, got a detective, and you know, but back in that period of time, there wasn't very many rights for black people. That's why I'm so thankful for the Civil Rights Act.
You lived in Westfield.
Westfield,
at the time.
that's correct.
Did your father work for USDO as well?
My father worked for USDO, retired from USDO in 1976. He was there approximately 40 years. The first years of his time at USDO, he worked in the plant. And the last 10 or 15 years, he worked in plant security. He checked the badges at the tin mill gate in Westfield.
Okay. What do you remember about your days growing up in Westfield?
Well,
What community was it?
I can remember every aspect of Westfield. In fact, I've got Westfield in my mind, every alley, every street, every pathway in Westfield. And Westfield was a town like no other town that I've ever encountered because the people were so close, and almost all of Westfield was black. It was created by USDO originally.
It's a company town.
Company town, right. We had one area where whites lived. There was about 12 houses. The rest of the area was surrounded by blacks. All of the people with authority in Westfield were white, even though they were a minority. We had a sheriff called Mr. Van. He was the sheriff, he was the postmaster. He was also the mayor, and he was Santa Claus at Christmas time.
Oh, is that right?
He had
Did
almost
he
all
actually visit your home?
He visited your home with gifts, you know, if your parents had gifts for you, you know, they would keep it at what was considered the fire station and the post office. And he would deliver them to the home at Christmas time sometimes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's you know, and Westfield was very close. Coming up, you could leave your doors open, sleep out on the porch, leave your bicycles on the sidewalks. No problems with thievery or stealing or killing, all the criminal aspects of life. Almost was nil, it didn't exist, but Westfield was a joyful place to live coming up.
Were there ever any racial incidents?
Yes, there were several racial incidents from outside of Westfield coming into Westfield. I remember the Fielder twins. They were, their last name was Fielder. And they were twin boys, and I can remember the police from Fairfield coming over and putting them in the car and taking them out to the city dump and beating them until their heads swelled up, you know, unrecognizable. And the Ku Klux came into Westfield on several occasions. My father was very active in the NAACP, and they burned crosses. And I can remember a time, one guy with a hood and a robe attempting to enter in through the bedroom where I was sleeping that night through the window in the house. And I hollered, right. I hollered out, and my father came with a shotgun, and, you know, he ran.
Did he fire the gun?
He didn't fire the gun. In fact, the guy was gone before he could get into the room because when I hollered, he started backing back out of the window, you know. But we had incidents such as that because, like, my father was like, he was probably the one that headed up the movement of the NAACP in Westfield during that period of time. And he was very instrumental in voters, you know, registration and so forth. And the Ku Klux really wanted to stop him. Anybody that spoke out, they wanted to shut their mouth, you know.
Was that lone Ku Klux? Was he
He was
by himself?
He was part of many others.
There was others outside
in
the
the
house?
car, right, in some cars. And that was the same period of time when they were burning the cross out in the Westfield area. They would come out.
Burning the cross in your yard?
Not in our yard, but in the square. We had like sort of a town square there. Carlton Reese, who was instrumental in the civil rights movement, he lived directly across the street from me. And Carlton was like a part of our family. He was at our house all the time, and we were at their house. And I can remember when we were kids, they took Carlton to jail, to juvenile, for looking at a white girl. They took him to juvenile, kept him there
from Westfield.
Kept him in juvenile for approximately 10 days, shaved all of his hair off, and charged him with reckless eyeballs.
That
Created a charge, reckless eyeball. And if you ever see Carlton Reese, you ask him about it, he'll tell you about it. You know, and it was just really no rights, but we didn't, you know, being in Westfield at that particular time, this wasn't a daily type thing as it was in other areas because there wasn't very many whites in Westfield. There was very few whites. You know.
What do you remember about your school?
Okay, when I was about to enter into high school, well, before that period of time, they started tearing down Westfield.
What about elementary school?
Elementary school.
Did you go to
Westfield.
Westfield.
In Westfield, we had Westfield number 2 and Westfield number 1. Westfield number 2 went from the 1st through the 4th. Westfield number 1 went from the 5th through the 8th. And then after you left Westfield number 1, then you went to Westfield High School. Now I went to elementary school, Westfield number 2 and Westfield number 1. I went through the 8th grade. In the summer after you're coming out of the 8th grade, before I entered into high school, we moved from Westfield to Fairfield because they were tearing down all the houses at that period of time. My father bought a house in Fairfield. And I had practiced football with Westfield in the 8th grade, and Coach Dixon was expecting me to come to Westfield.
Right.
You know, but I got to Fairfield, and Fairfield had a championship team that year. In fact, we played Westfield for the championship, which was called a TV Bowl at that time.
At Rickwood.
Rickwood, Fairfield, we played at Fair Park.
Fair Park?
They played at Rickwood and at Fair Park,
Right.
but they had started playing at Fair Park. And we beat Westfield that year 15-6. Both of us were undefeated that year, but Westfield had some championship teams every year after that. But yes, we left Westfield and moved to Fairfield, and here in Fairfield High School. And I believe it was during my first year in high school, 1962, 63, that we marched.
Right. But before we get to the march, tell me just a bit about what you remember about school in Westfield.
School in Westfield.
Anything that stand out in your mind in elementary school?
Yes, I had a reputation to live up to. I remember that because all of my brothers and my sister were older, and they are older than I am.
So you were the baby?
I was the baby.
Okay.
And I would really resent that when I was a child coming up, but after I got older, I told Mother, I'm your baby. She would say, this is my baby here. I'm not gonna call me your baby. I'm your youngest son. Just tell him you're your youngest son, but after you get older, you enjoy being called a baby. But I had a reputation to live up to. All the teachers knew my brothers and sisters. They were very smart in school, and they expected me to live up to the Grace name, and I was very athletic in school. I played ball sports, wrestling, and all types of sports. That was my desire, But because of my family history, I had to live up academically too. But I remember first grade, I had a teacher, her name was Mrs. Parker, and second grade, Ms. Davis, and the third grade teacher, I can't, her name evades me right now. Fourth grade, Mrs. Green, and so on,
You remember your teachers?
The teachers, right, they were strict during that time. And
how far did you live from your school?
Westfield number 1 was a little closer than Westfield number 2. I guess I would walk about approximately half a mile.
And all the children walk to school,
right? And I mean, half a mile in didn't seem like far at all. Kids half a mile, they want to ride with the family car school, But we left in plenty of time to get to school. You made it to school, always made it to school on time, and missing school was a no-no. You didn't miss school, you didn't play hooky from school. We had a truant officer. She traveled Westfield, Fairfield. Her name escapes me right now, but
is that Ms. Boatwright?
I don't think her name was Miss Boatwright. She was a big woman. Yeah. She was a large black woman, and she was very, very strict. Right. But I've got a lot of fond memories of elementary school and church. We were all coming up. We were made. You had to go to church. I mean, that was a demand on all the kids. Sunday morning, you had your suit on, and you went to church, Sunday school and church. That's right. And I think that's what really grounded me in my faith when the civil rights movement took place.
What was the transition like from moving from Westfield to Fairfield?
This was the transition. Back in those days, there was a rivalry going on among blacks, which, the kids today have gang rivalries. Right. We had like city rivalries, Fairfield against Westfield, against Ennis, against Southside, against Cottageville, against Winona, Right. And I knew that I was moving over to a different city, and I would probably encounter some of the guys that considered themselves to be tough. And I was known as the toughest guy in my grade level in Westfield. So there was a guy named John Don Smith who formerly lived in Westfield that lived in Fairfield, and I asked him, I said, Don, who's the toughest guy in the 9th grade? And he told me this guy, Eddie Godwin.
What was his name?
Eddie Godwin.
Eddie Godwin.
And I said, well, I want to meet Eddie Godwin. So I had to see, I knew that if I had to go into this place and do anything physical, I wanted to start at the top. If I could start at the top and get the top straightened out, everything underneath would fall in place. So I started with Eddie, and Eddie and I became close friends. And my transition into Fairfield was very smooth as a result of the summer before entering high school. You know, we became friends, and you know, we tussled, wrestled, had try one another, but you know, I always came out on top, so
So everything
so I
worked out
didn't have any
fine.
problems, right?
Yeah.
So, and Ed and I both played football at Fairfield High School. Our senior year, I was the captain of the football team, and Ed was co-captain. So we just became real close, you know, in school. We both were on the team in the 9th grade, you know, we started in 9th grade.
What was Fairfield High School like?
Fairfield High School was under Professor E.J. Oliver. I mean, he was known. He was very well known. And he was very, very exceptionally strict. You know, he didn't have any foolishness in his school. He demanded respect, and he got it. You know, and all the teachers, you know, they were very strict. And Fairfield High School, you know, it was an educational experience, but it was also an athletic experience for me. I think I got away with a lot of things as a result of my athletic ability that I wouldn't normally have gotten away with, you know.
Like what, for instance?
Like sometimes, even today, you know, something I really don't appreciate, teachers passing someone on, giving them better grades than they really deserve, because they're an athlete, you know, because their basketball skills, or football skills, and you know, it should be a demand on kids because very few make it in the NBA, you know, and the NFL, you know.
A few jobs.
Right. And it's good to use your athletic ability to get an education, you know, but make sure you do that, get that education, because your athletic ability might not add up. It might not measure up.
Right.
So, but all in all, I had some pretty strict school teachers, and it was necessary for me to get my lesson. You know, I really excelled during my junior and senior year. You know, so the 9th and 10th grade was a lot harder than it was 11th and 12th grade.
Right.
But
Were you involved in any other activities other than athletic?
other than athletics, no, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. Like I said, I was sort of a tough guy coming up. I was I had my own little game.
You were the macho man.
I was the macho man coming up, and I had my own little fellow groups, you know. And it's sad to say that I don't know, that stigma just seemed to stick with a lot of us. I don't know whether it came from the tribes in Africa, or you know, one tribe against the other, or what, you know. But
just human nature.
yeah, it seems to be something that's ingrained in us, embedded in us, and some of these things need to be rooted out, because even in the movement, though we were together, there was still separatism. You know, when it came down to, I remember even entering the jailhouse. You know?
Let me ask you then, before we get to jail,
Okay.
as you were a freshman or sophomore.
Freshman when I went to Fairfield.
Yeah.
Right.
But in '63 during the demonstrations.
62, 63, I was a freshman. 63,
So you were-
64, I was.
So you were in '63, in May
Right.
of '63, you were a freshman.
Right, and I finished my freshman year.
Right,
of 63.
So how did you get involved with the
Well,
movement?
It was something that was brewing. It was in the air, it was all over the news, it was in the community, it was in the churches, you know. This was the message throughout the community, and you know that, you know, we've got to do something to gain respect and give the rights. I would listen to the older people, you know.
You say it was in your churches.
Yeah.
What church were you?
I went to Hopewell Baptist Church
Right.
on Law Road in Fairfield, in Westfield, I'm sorry. And
So you went
in Fairfield, I went to Mount Pilgrim.
Okay.
Mount Pilgrim, Fairfield. And, but
Were your church involved?
Uh,
your minister involved in the movement at all?
I don't think Reverend Vaughn was involved directly, you know, but,
But did he talk about the movement? You said it was talked about, you know, throughout the communities.
yeah.
Was it discussed in church at all?
Yes, it was discussed the need for voting rights and for civil rights, you know, and my father was one of the biggest preachers that, I mean, he wasn't a minister,
Oh, okay.
but he was one that had the message
Okay.
in my family because he stood strong,
Mhm.
you know, with the need for us to gain our rights. And I think my father was really instrumental.
So he was very active in the movement?
Right, he was very active. He was very active, like I said, in the NAACP.
Okay.
And also the voters' right movement. You know, he was getting out there and trying to get people to register to vote. In fact, he ran for city council in Fair. He didn't make it that year, but he was very active politically.
Right.
You know, and
so how did you actually get involved
okay.
in the actual movement itself?
Well, actually, we were in school
Okay.
when the day that we marched, and Carlton Reese, he had gotten together and organized the march, and I was sitting in music class. And my teacher, Miss Battle, who she married, became Miss Major. We were in her classroom, and we began to hear someone down the hall saying, "Let's go!"
Inside the
inside the school,
Mhm.
right? And then all of a sudden, it sounded like voices. You know, you can hear the footsteps coming down the hall, saying, "Let's go!" And it was getting closer and closer, and as it got closer, the footsteps were heavier, you know. And someone got to our door and opened up the music class door and said, "Let's go!" And we all got up. Miss Battle, Miss Major, she stood in the door to try to stop us. And I can remember this guy, Oscar Porter. He pushed her out of the way. And we all just hit the hallway and we went to the next door. We began to be the ones that opened the door. Let's go. And kids just rushed on out. Many teachers tried to stop us, and many teachers were for us going, tried to push us, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a need. It was a need, and the spirit of faith was just in the air.
Do you remember Professor Oliver that day? Was he there?
Professor Oliver, I think we passed his office. That was the biggest obstacle that, I knew that we had to encounter was Professor Oliver. Because when Professor Oliver spoke, E.F. Hutton don't have a chance. I mean, everybody listened to Professor Oliver. But we made it through. I think I vaguely remember seeing him in the hallway, but what he was saying at that point in time, I don't remember. But whatever it wasn't strong enough to stop us. We had built up that momentum, and we were going on, and everyone went out into the streets, and Carlton Reese had everyone to line up. We all lined up. He gave a speech about what we were going to do. We were going to march from Fairfield High School and meet a group at 5 Points West, and the group at 5 Points West, we were all heading downtown to meet Reverend King and Shuttlesworth, all of the fellows downtown.
Right.
So that was the plan. So we began to march from Fairfield High School, went up to the west side of Miles College and over down Carline Road to Bessemer Road.
Right.
And when we got down near Bessemer Road, we knew if we had any problems, any major problems, it was going to be on between there and 5 Points West, Bessemer Road, because we had to contend with Midfield Police and Fairfield Police. And so Carlton at that point in time had everyone to stop. If we had any paraphernalia, any knives, any dice or whatever, it's time to get rid of them now because we didn't want any extra charges to be filed against anyone. And knives and dice and things beginning to come from everywhere, when they gathered them all up. And as soon as we hit Bessemer Road, marching on Bessemer Road, all of a sudden, I know the Caucasians in the area had already informed the police. Police came from everywhere. Buses, paddy wagons. They loaded us up on paddy wagons and in buses. they carried us off to the 6th Avenue precinct. And the jails were so full that they didn't have any place to put us. They put us in the lawn, out in the yard. And as we were there waiting all during the day, they brought more and more. And before you knew it, that whole yard was covered with people, wall-to-wall people. And they began to meter us off into various jails around the city. And finally, I was carried up to 6th Avenue. I was kept there, along with quite a few of my classmates, people that I knew.
So you were carried to 6th Avenue?
6th Avenue precinct. We were there in the yard.
Right. Oh,
They carried us upstairs.
Oh, I see.
Right, and put us in a cell block. They put us all in a cell block, and that's when they began to film us, to get us on film. And we stayed there for 5 days.
Were any of your brothers involved?
My brothers, I don't think that they marched because they were in Harold, and he was in Fairfield High School. Now my brother Al, he was at Talladega College at the time, so he wasn't there. My brother Harold, he was a senior my freshman year. He was at Westfield, and I was at Fairfield. So I don't know if I don't recall. I would probably come into I would probably misquote the situation. If I say he was or he wasn't, I have to talk with him at the time.
Sure.
I don't remember.
How many people would you estimate were on that march?
I would think probably 3/4 of the school, if not
Right.
90%.
Basically,
I would say, I don't know how many people were at Fairfield High School at the time, but I know there were hundreds of
it
us.
was a massive march.
Yeah, it was a massive march. There was hundreds of us. And everyone wanted to participate, I mean, hearing Dr. King speak.
Were you aware that day that was going to take place?
It was in the air, but we didn't know. I didn't know for sure if it was going to take place that day. I know plans it had been rumored that we were going to be marching, but I didn't know for sure that it was going to be that day.
What were the circumstances of your arrest?
Well,
What do you remember about the arrest?
I remember being pushed, manhandled, thrown into the bus, thrown up the steps. Thrown up the steps. I mean, people, the police at that point in time, they didn't have any respect for us, or anyone else that was black. I mean, you were black, you were just like an animal out there, you were inferior. I mean, this was their mentality during that period of time. And I don't hate any, I love all people. I don't have any animosity against them, but there's certain things I can't watch on TV, like Mississippi Burning and some of these movies, that brings back old thoughts of what happened, depicting a lot of things. Now, as far as watching the actual films of what happened, in the movement, yes, I enjoy. I come to Civil Rights Institute to watch myself on TV sometimes. Bring back memories. Sometimes I go to the library and get a film out, video, and watch it. But Bull Connor and those guys, man, Wallace, and, Patterson before him, they just, it was just like blacks were, not him. I can remember my father saying yes, sir, to a young man, younger than I, and after moving back here, and I told my father, don't say yes, sir, to that boy. That's nothing but a boy. But it was just that mentality. It was ingrained in us from the past. I was just fortunate to see both sides. I can remember always getting on the bus, and I can remember the colored signs. We had to get on the back of the bus. They had a sign that would sit on the back of the seat, and you sit behind that sign.
Right.
And at the
Did
front of the bus.
you ever move the sign?
I didn't move the sign, but I moved from my seat a lot of times.
So you did.
Yeah. I moved. In fact, I think I have moved the sign, just being a kid. But I many times I had to get up, get my seat up.
Yeah, when you were arrested, how many days did you spend in jail?
5 days.
What was that experience like?
We still had the inner city rivalries. going on. It was calm, but I feel bad about the fact. But being a kid and being raised that way, you know, I had that city mentality. When someone else came in from another city, you patted them down. If they had anything, you took it. You know what I'm saying?
Even during
When
the movement, in jail.
See, when in jail, I sort of commanded, like the guys that were from Fairfield that was with me. You know, it was quite a few of us in the cell. Right. Someone else came in from Eastville or South Side, I'd tell them, you know, check them out. You know, check them out, pat them down, took the things, man. And I don't feel good about that now, but I just see that as being ignorance on my part and our part. But that was the mentality that we had.
The juvenile in you.
Juvenile in us at that point in time, you know. And even though we were marching together, we were still separate. You know, the movement was what brought us together. But even after the march was over, there was still separatism between us. You know, and we have a need to come together as a people. We have a need to get together.
So there were several guys that you knew that was right there with you.
That's
the
correct.
entire time that you were in
That's
jail.
correct. That's correct.
So you were never alone.
Never alone. Never alone. In fact, we were so many. We were in there like almost like sardines in a can. You know, with so many people in each cell block. In each cell block, they had what's called a day room, where they had their picnic tables. That's where you eat at normally. And they had approximately 4 cells with 4 bunks to each cell. You know, and the doors were left open all the time. So it was just like an apartment. 4-bedroom apartment, right? You go in and I go to the day room, you go back to the bunks. But we had all the bunks. Anyone else came in from another city, they slept wherever they could, you know. But you know, it was an experience. It was really an experience.
Right.
And remember the photographers coming to the cell, and you know, all of us holding our hands up, saying, "We shall overcome." You know, we shall overcome, but we were still divided.
Right.
Yeah.
Were there older people in there with you?
Most of the guys that were in there with us were our age, and I think that might be the way that they did it. They did it purposely, you know. And in fact, the guys in the cell blocks, when they decided to clean up our cell blocks, we had to go to the next cell blocks. And a lot of guys from Fairfield, our age and a year or so older, were in that cell block, and guys from other cities also were in that cell block. So,
what were the circumstances of your release from jail?
well, when I was released, I guess after 5 days, they began to release us. That's what I guess they were asking us to stay in for 5 days.
Right.
After 5 days, my mother and father, they came and they released us. They picked me up at the jail and took me on back home.
What did your mother and father
They
say
were
about your?
They were proud of me. They were proud of me. My father was too, because you know, like I said, he was very active. Now, if I had have requested to march, he probably would have stood strong against it. But since it had already happened, you know, there wasn't any kind of repercussions about it. You know, he was just happy that you know, I was okay and that I came out of alive, and I wasn't beaten like many people were beaten, you know, downtown. And no dogs were sick on me. You know, I didn't have any bites or anything on me. You know, we were just fortunate that we weren't beaten, because you know, quite a few people were beaten.
What was your reception when you returned to school?
They received us gladly, because there were so many. In order to expel anyone, they would have to expel the whole school. You know, because school was just practically nil during that week, during that 5 days. You know, I know that there were some that didn't march, but they were very few. They were in a minority. You know, so we didn't have any.
You were not expelled from school.
No, we weren't expelled from school, and we didn't have any repercussions. You know, in school concerning it.
Did you ever attend any of the mass meetings in any of the churches?
I didn't attend any only, like I said, Fairfield was pretty small community.
Right.
Close
Well,
to Birmingham.
what happened afterwards? Were you involved in any activities after you came out of jail?
I think my life basically took on the sports aspect of my life and just schooling. I didn't get involved like Carlton or some of the other guys did. I didn't continue on. I went into the military and
Right after high school?
right after high school. Yeah, Vietnam and so forth. And,
Okay.
come back. But, yeah.
Okay, well, that's an interesting piece because that activity, there were many people like you who marched, you were arrested, you spent time in jail, and that activity, like you said, you were caught up in a period
Right.
where much activity was taking place, and that's very, very significant.
Yeah, I was just thankful to be involved
Mm.
because it was really broad. I don't think we've ever been together. Any time since that point in time, like we were at that point in time, marching, and everyone was committed to a common cause. We all had the same reason for being there. We all had that faith that we were going to change this situation, and in time it changed. Thank God for leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King, because it was through his message that we all gained the faith to believe that we could make a difference.
Do you remember the Sunday morning that 16th Street Baptist
yeah.
Church was bombed?
Oh yes, I remember
What do you
that. I
remember?
remember hearing him. I wasn't near here. I was, but it was all over TV, and there's just a sad situation. It was just like, it was unbelievable. It was just like, you wanted to do something, but you knew, you ever been in a situation where you just want to do something, and you just can't, that you can't do anything, I can remember being a child and I guess basically I just wanted some vengeance. Just be honest about it. I wanted some vengeance. And to see those kids, destroyed like that.
Where were you when Dr. King was assassinated?
I was in San Antonio, Texas. Yeah, I was in San Antonio, Texas, in the military.
Were you in the Air Force?
I was in the Army. Yeah, I was in the Army, and I had just left Fort Benning and jump school. I had the airborne jump school. And I went to San Antonio to take medical training. I was a combat medic. And I can remember the guys in the Army, man. I mean, it's just like, it's the same situation. We wanted to do something. It's almost, but we are in the military, In the military, things are a whole lot different. I believe if I was out in the street somewhere, I would have done something. But that was really another unbelievable situation. I can remember crying because I remembered his messages, and every time Dr. King would speak, it was like I could sense an anointing, on his message, and that anointing would touch me. I could feel it in my physical body, especially the one, the speech about being on the mountaintop, seeing what's on the other side, and he knew that he wouldn't get there. He might not get there with us, but we as a people, we'll get there, and it reminds me now of Jesus Christ. He knew that he was going to die, but his death was for a reason, to free mankind. And Dr. King knew that his death would be instrumental in us receiving our civil rights, and he wasn't afraid to die. Many of fear stops a lot of things in life, but courage can change things, and it was through his courage that things were changed, and we as a people became stronger in our faith through his message. And I just wish that he could have seen this day, and many of us today don't realize what we have, and we forget the past. If you lose sight of the past, you lose your direction, to the future. And I think many of us have lost sight of the past. It was through unity, through togetherness, that we made a change. There's so much separatism between our race. Now we need to come together, with a common cause. We're in a warfare. Most of us don't realize we're in a warfare. We're in economic warfare for one thing, and a political warfare. We're soldiers out on the battlefield and don't even know we're in a warfare. We need to come together and unify ourselves and organize ourselves and get some strategies and some plans together and make a change.
Right.
Many of our black youngsters are just out there in the streets losing their lives. They have no direction, no vision. They don't know what their purpose in life is. We just need to come together. We need organizations like the Civil Rights Institute, that keeps us informed and keep our memories ablaze with where we've come from. Right. In order for us to keep our mind on that vision and keep going, keep on forward.
Mr. Grace, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule, which has been very helpful. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we conclude?
Well, there's 5 things in life, okay? I know man is made up of 3 parts: spirit, soul, and body. We have social and financial needs. If we get those 5 things in order in the proper perspective, the spirit first, our minds educated, keep our bodies healthy, begin to do things to develop ourselves economically, and keep our social order intact, I think we can all go places in this life. So I have such a desire to see our people just come together and unify ourselves. I've had ideas on money-making ideas. That's one aspect of things, of life, and I've shared them with other people, and everyone saw the vision.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but when it came down to being there, scattered, right? So we just got to come together on all issues, political, educational, every aspect of life. So with that, I guess I've spoken and said just about all I can say right now.
Well, I appreciate
this meeting with you.
Appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.